definitely what happens for the overwhelming majority of young male characters. But he wanted to try using a real boy, and so he brought me in, and that was my great talent, was being a naturally masculine sounding child. Yeah. So what have I done since then? I later got to do Alphonse Elric in Full Metal Alchemist. I'm also Leo Watch in Blood Blockade Battlefront, Oscar Pine in Ruby, Tamaki in My Hero Academia, Sinfu in Dr. Stone. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Clotted Cream in Cookie Run Kingdom.
Yes, and oh my god! You're Clotted Cream Cookie. Wow, and you're the paladin. You're Marissa Lindsay. That's I forget her. Wait, Benuncier Cookie. That's amazing. I've never seen people cosplay from Cookie Run Kingdom. I'm very pleased with this.
We're a very rare breed.
Well, it's so funny because on the internet, Cookie Run Kingdom dwarfs any anime I've ever been part of. But then in person, there's way more, I get way more anime fans come up than Cookie Run fans. It's interesting. Yeah. Anyway, I also have been doing adaptive writing for anime for some time. I adapted scripts for the likes of Tokyo Ghoul, Fairy Tail, Attack on Titan, Dr. Stone, Fire Force, and I have also directed for several anime. I assistant directed for parts of Fairy Tail. I also directed a show called Nambika, which is awesome. Highly recommend it if you're into the idea of a weird, sparkly comedy prison. Yeah. What else was I gonna? Oh, right. Let me explain what that is, what adaptive writing is. So basically, if you want to have someone say, "Hello there, how are you?" When you're animating that in English for an original animation, you go, "Hello there, how are you?" 3 syllables, 3 syllables. "Hello there, how are you?" I bet somebody here speaks Japanese. Anybody here speak Japanese? Oh, right, because we're anime dub fans. That makes sense. All right, yeah, my bad. The point is, "Hello there, how are you?" could take several more syllables to say. It frequently does. I'm not saying our language is more efficient. Sometimes it seems that way. Yeah, because, okay, it's actually, and that's unfair, because I should mention, the translations that you see in a subtitled anime are, they are bleached, shrunken versions of the original line, because they need to be as concisely written as possible so that you can move your eyes down, get the information you need, and return your eyes to the action. Yeah. So as a result, you can see the same line in say a manga, and then see it in a subtitled anime, and it will always be a shorter version in the subtitled anime. And so, as a result, it often looks like the Japanese are taking an extremely long time to say something very simple. And depending on how lazy the subtitler was, like sometimes it's like comedic. Like somebody can like say like, you know, and then it says, "Okay, cool," in the subtitles. It's ridiculous sometimes. Yeah. Anyway, my job is to re-expand, make sure that the words are fitting into that space. If there's a manga, to reference that for the sort of longer version of the translation. Often my job is to harass the translator and get clarification on things that they wrote. I've actually I've gotten the translation for Attack on Titan corrected a few times before it ended up going out. The only event I remember of this specifically was this whole. How many of y'all have seen Attack on Titan? Some of them. Okay, cool. Then this may be of interest. It's so nitpicky and small, but there's this line after the military coup happens, when the sort of Commander Irvin and everyone have sort of taken over the world inside the walls, and they're about to go out and try to retake Shiganshina. And Armin said this line, and the translation subtitles said, not long after the elevators of Trost were dismantled, the scouts rode north to Shiganshina. And it showed not elevators being dismantled, it showed active elevators on the wall of Trost with horses on them. And I looked at the manga, and the manga did not say dismantled. It said they were going, like not long after after elevators were set up on the gates of Trost, or around on the walls of Trost. And so, like, basically, it was the opposite of the real meaning, as best I could tell from looking at context, from considering things like, I don't know, how would you get soldiers outside of Trost? Well, there was a whole 6-episode arc where Trost had a boulder put into where the gate is. So, what it did not show in the image was anybody rolling a giant boulder away from the gate of Trost. This led me to believe that the elevators were used to get the scouts over the thing. I had this big fight with the translator about it, where he was like, look, I don't know what to tell you. The word means dismantled. And I'm like, yeah, but look, use your eyes. We had a long debate, and we ended up, I think, to this day, I think that it's just different. Like, the dub version says the opposite of dismantled, basically. Not after, it says, the dub just says something quite different from what the sub says on that line. But there are other cases where we usually find a point of consensus. Also, the manga's on my side, no big deal. Anyway, I'll open up to questions if y'all have any. Yeah. You'll find some. Yeah.
What have been your favorite animes to work on?
I'm a huge fan of Dr. Stone. It's been such a blast. Kaguya-sama Love is War is another one that I'm a really big fan of. Kaguya Love is War, like, will hit you, like, it's very funny, and then it will hit you with some, like, truth bombs about modern living and love. That shows the origin of the line, people push themselves to their limits because they want to be loved. And I think about that line a lot in terms of, like, finding self-motivation as a self-employed person. You know, it's easy to, it's not easy. It's not easy to have a full-time job, but there is something to be said for a situation where you just have to show up and then do as you're told. And I have now reached a point in my life where a lot of the work that I want to do is optional to do and can be done at my own pace, my own schedule, and therefore I tend to put it off. It's horrible. And you know, so you have to find your own sources of motivation. Yeah, and I think the desire for love is one of the better motivators. So my partner and I are working on a comic right now. Yeah. And basically, I impose deadlines, and I say, if you want me to keep loving you, you have to meet these deadlines. And it's great. Thanks, Kaguya-sama. Yeah, thanks for the question. I don't really do that. I hope that's clear. It's implied. Huh? Yeah.
I had a question. Sometimes when looking up voice actors, you can see what show they were in and the role, but sometimes it just says like additional voices, which I know what that means in a literal sense, but what does that mean from a voice actor's perspective?
Yeah, it means I did a Walla section. So if you want to see me in additional voice roles, Skate the Infinity, I am like half of the skater dudes that are like, whoa, sick, man. You know, everyone in that dub sounds totally normal, and then, but then like all the main characters with names sound totally normal, and there's a bunch of like surfer douches. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. But you know what I'm talking about. Like, and that's me and Rico Fajardo. We were recording from our home studio, and yeah, we just had fun with it. So that's what we did. That's rad, bro. And we also there are some things that we do every time, like we work into every session that we're planning to start a food business. Like, I got a new idea for a food truck, dude. Oh yeah? Like what? Like what happened to the donut roll idea? And he's like, no. We're gonna do hot dogs, but like with a stick through them. I'm like, you mean corn dogs? No. Anyway, you can hear that if you listen real close. When I directed a lot, I would do wall sessions where I would give the two actors a prompt of a subject to discuss. You usually want 4 actors in the booth at a time. So I would break them into 2 sets of 2. And I'd be like, you two are having an ugly breakup. And you two, it's in a park, let's say. Actually, literally, yeah, for a show called Cheer Boys, this happened. So it's in a park. 2 of them are having a breakup, and 2 of them have found a bird with a broken wing. And they sort of go through the whole scene. It's like a minute and a half that they're sort of just fleshing out so that the air feels like it has people in it, you know? And it gets turned down so low, you never really hear what's happening. But I could hear it at the time, and by the end of the scene, they decided that they needed to kill the bird. They euthanized the bird with the broken wing. These 2 like children-sounding voices do that in like episode 6 of Cheer Boys. More frequently, you will have what you do, yeah. So you do those big improv scenes where you're nobody and everybody, and then you also do bit parts where you're like the grateful, the woman whose cat climbed up a tree, and you need the hero to save the cat while they're fighting Majin Buu. You know, they work in that little like bit of levity there. Yeah, and you've got like 2 lines, and your job is to come up with a voice on the spot. Hello, goodbye. Yeah, so that's what additional voices is. It used to be that on the credits they would say, Villager 26A, Aaron Dismuke. Rude Chef 32B, Aaron Dismuke. But they don't really bother with that anymore, and I think that's okay. Yep. I did get credited as a zombie unicorn in One Piece, and I've died so many times in One Piece, and I actually refuse to do One Piece Walla now because my voice can't take it. It was 3-hour sessions where you're just like, now you're angry villagers, now you're panicked villagers, now you're dying villagers. It just went and went and went. It's always a big crowd of people. Oh my gosh, Don Flamingo, screw that guy. He made me yell so much. Okay, I'm good.
How hard was it to voice act Claudia Cream? Like, I know your guys' voice sounds similar, like it sounds like your natural voice, but how hard was it?
How hard was voicing Clotted Cream Cookie? Not. I got to do, but that voice, coming up with that voice, which is, it's me, but quite self-indulgent and educated.
Yes.
And beautiful. And he knows he's beautiful. Yes, so coming up with this voice, it started with Oscar from Ruby, who is just a shy, he's just a shy little bean. He doesn't want any trouble, but inside of him is the soul of a very educated man who speaks like this. He's sort of a fatherly figure, but distant because he's also quite academic. And so doing that voice got me thinking about that sort of half-assed British accent, that sort of aristocratic lilt. And then, once I had done the aristocratic lilt for Ozpin and Ruby, when Ozpin is speaking through Oscar, then I was like, okay, well, I mean, I bet I could do this for other stuff. And then I ended up being H.E. in a show called On Stars, Ensemble Stars.
I've heard of that.
Yeah, I'm the rat. But the rat sounds exactly like Clotted Cream Cookie, and he looks pretty similar too. And so that was a nice low risk show because that show was not watched by too many people. The game is played by a fair amount of people, but we didn't get a lot of people watching our dub. Partially, I think, because we weren't able to dub the songs, and it's a show about music. Yeah. So, getting to play H.E. was super fun, and I realized that I wanted to do that kind of voice more. I actually remember doing a class. Patrick Seitz was holding a class. He directs Fire Emblem, and he's a voice actor who's in a lot of stuff. He's awesome. But I specifically brought sides for a character like Clotted Cream Cookie, either before or after getting that audition, but within a couple weeks of doing that audition. And it sort of works through that with him, and that was kind of helpful too. But yeah, it's something I want to do more. I quite like doing that sort of voice. It's a good time. I also got to do a full British accent in a show called Moriarty the Patriot, and that character, super similar. Again, with the sort of knows he's pretty, sort of, it's like a smarmy kind of thing in a lot of ways. Yeah. Also, the word's clotted cream. It's something. There's something there. Yep. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
So, for your vocally demanding characters, whenever you need to do those heightened emotions, do you have any warm-ups or techniques that you use or go through?
Yeah, I certainly do now. I spent way too long not warming up, but I had to step back from several roles for about 3 months, quite recently, because I overdid it, trying to voice what really got me. So it was Nishikata and Takagi Love is War that I was recording for, and he's 12, and he's constantly panicked, screaming, and it was with a studio that works quite fast, and I wanted to impress them, so I didn't complain when I should have. Didn't ask to stop when I should have. And yeah, now I'll take you through it. I do something, it's called semi-occluded phonation to warm up. So I go. And then I go for as long as I can, and then I go for as long as I can, and then I go for as long as I can, and then I go for as long as I can, and then I go for as long as I can. I do that every morning, and I do that every night, and I also do that before I go to record for anyone who isn't Clotted Cream Cookie. Yep. Yeah.
Do you have any favorite lines from your time working on Done with Smart Timer?
Yeah, it's that one. He just learned that Susanoo was a spy from the other side, heaven. She's a spy from heaven, and he is checking the fridge for food because he's hungry, and he sees these noodles that Susanoo left them, that the spy from the enemy left, and he's like, that's kind of suspicious. And he opens it up, and he's like, smells a little celestial forcey, but YOLO. and then he eats it. And yeah, that was the best use of YOLO ever to me, to my eyes. I also liked when he holds out his hand and what's his name? What's Anthony Bolling's character? Alciel? Alciel's like, what? And I'm like, want pizza, give me money. I was a fan of that as well. So concise. There's a real poetry to condensing your thoughts into just 4 words like that.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes with him is when he was trying to get the game system back, and he was convincing them that it was a way to get back to the other world, but really he just wanted his PSP.
Yeah, he was like, oh, was that not a gate? Ah, that's too bad, but there might be a game system there, and he's like, yeah, there is. I'm like, great, why don't you bring that on back? That was the best part, was how like...
Or when they get the landlady's bikini for like underwear stuff sent in all of the boxes.
I don't remember that, I blocked it out.
I mean, it was a very traumatizing scene, so I could see that.
Yeah.
Outside of characters you have voiced, what are your favorite characters in the shows you've worked on?
Outside of characters I've voiced, my favorite characters still from shows I've worked on. Okay. Ishikami from Kaguya-sama Love is War. He's awesome. He's awesome because he has the best arcs, because he has so much room to grow. He's an interesting case. So I ended up, I was cast by Morgan Garrett, or Morgan LeRae, I think is what she goes by, in that show, and she directed me and set the character and set the tone of the show, and what have you. And then she wasn't able to do season 1, so I ended up directing season 1, and I remember there being this moment where Ishigami he has an incel rant. I mean, and that's what it is. I mean, he's talking to Shirogane about girl problems, and he's like, man, if men are wolves, women are snakes. They always get wrapped up in their own drama like Ouroboros. And if you ask me, their poison is almost always lethal. So it's pretty intensely misogynistic, right? And also, but it's like made funny by a couple of things. One of them is that he says, if men are wolves, women are snakes. Like, who said men are wolves? Do you think that's a good thing? Yeah, right. It's because he probably sees himself as an alpha, like wolf, a lone wolf.
Bad boy.
Oh god.
And he's gonna grow out of that. He ends up having positive relationships with the women around him, and then growing into a better person who doesn't think like that. But the place where he starts is a place where a lot of people start, or end up in their lives whenever they have stuff go wrong for them. And he's got this great arc, a number of great arcs, where Kaguya trains him up and helps him get good at school, where he falls in love with the popular girl, and then it doesn't work out, but also she's good to him, and she's a good person. I love his whole story. I'm also a big fan of Zap and Blood Blockade Battlefront. That's Ian Sinclair's character in that show. Zap is tasked with protecting my character, and my character is at this point not aware that he's been assigned to protect me, and I also am working as a pizza delivery boy. And there is a montage that is beautiful of Zap ordering pizza from me and then not paying for it, and I try to get him to pay, and I fail, and then he begins to steal my pizzas as I'm trying to deliver them to other people. He leaps from vehicles, he appears under manhole covers, he does everything you can think of to divest me of my pizza, and he's basically just entertaining himself while he does bodyguard duty. It's quite good. Yeah.
You said previously that you've been working
working in the voice acting industry for 20 years.
Uh-huh.
So in that time frame, how has it kind of evolved and changed?
Oh my gosh.
Loaded question.
We used to have paper scripts. Now we have digital scripts. It's an upgrade. Now the director types from their room and the script updates in my room. Now I can record in real time with the director based in LA from my home studio in my living room. Before we had VCR tapes that were rewinding and playing so that we could get our timing right, you know? And now we sort of like literally, I mean, we can do squishing and squeezing and stretching of lines. We can mix it in real time, especially at Okratron, which is Chris Sabat's studio. They'll do a lot of real-time mixing so that you can hear what it sounds like, what it will sound like once, you know, they augment the sound so that it's clear that the room has some echo to it and what have you. What else? Everything has to go faster now, which means that we, for the adaptive writers, they really have to be good detectives. They have to be sure that the way that they're writing around a line doesn't affect the way that that line will resolve or come back in, 20 episodes. There was, oh my gosh, this gets to, so Attack on Titan is like the hardest case of this, right? Because the manga wasn't even out whenever the show started. Like the manga wasn't finished until like 3 months ago or something, like very recently, it finally finished. And so there were lines that we just had no way of knowing that they were gonna be as important as they were. Lines like, this world is, lines like, because I was born into this world, in the subtitled version, that's the line. And it was adapted to, because this world is my birthright. So that line gets put into many people's mouths after that. It's a line that Aaron says as for his motivation, why he wants to go outside the walls and see the outside world and beat the Titans and what have you. So later, Aaron's mother says that same line. She says, I don't think he has to do anything great. She's holding him as a baby. It's a flashback scene you see. She's like, I don't think Aaron has to do anything great. I think he's special enough just like he is for no other reason than because he was born into this world. You can't say for no other reason than because this world is his birthright. That doesn't sound right. It sounds so, like way too angsty. It sounds like a thing that Aaron would have said in that other situation, but not the thing that his mother would say. And we just had no way of communicating with the mangaka and knowing how he would change these words later. So for me, when I was adapting that, Michael Tatum adapted the original Birthright line. And so I kept this one, and I decided I would try to marry them eventually. So we've got, this world is my birthright, and we've got, because I was born into this world. Later, Aaron has a line when he's talking to Zeke, and he's saying that he's for the euthanization thing. He's down to euthanize all aliens. And he says, what I wrote for that, because he said, it would be better, the only way to save people is to save them from being born into this world. Again, we're using that same word. And so I changed it to, this world is no one's birthright, it's a hell to be saved from. And then finally, in the final season, I was just script supervising, but I finally managed to find a spot to do it. Let me try to remember. This world, birthright, born. Sorry, you're gonna have to find it yourself. But we did end up finding a way to mix those two lines into a single line, and resolve that problem. But sometimes that's the way you have to do it. If you make an adaptive choice here, and then 3 seasons later, 3 seasons, aka 10 years later sometimes, Devil's a Part-Timer comes to mind, it comes back. You have to work with what you've done and find ways to sort of jerry-rig it back in place. And that's also why I think, generally it's best to stick with the original as much as you can. especially with dramatic stories that have a penchant for self-referencing. Yeah. Yes, back there.
How did you get into directing and writing?
So when I was in college, I was a history major, but I ended up picking up an English minor in my last semester. And I submitted a story to a contest the college was holding, and I won the contest. And then I was working as a waiter at, having gotten my degree in history, I picked up a job as a waiter at a burger restaurant, like you do. And my dad was like, hey, have you thought about submitting that story have you thought about sending that story to Funimation to try and do some of the writing for it? Because once upon a time, Justin had mentioned that writing job to him, for him, because my dad's an English teacher. And I was like, oh yeah, maybe I could do script adaptation. And so I sent them my story, and I said, hey, I'd love to be considered for adaptive writing. And they got back to me with a audition script for a show called... No. All I remember is that it had Chris Sabat in it, and it had Automan in it. It was not Full Metal Alchemist, but it had people with Automan. It was sort of a steampunky vibe. And I remember the head writer at the time, John Bergmeyer, sat me down with the script that I had done and with the script that he had done when he first adapted that show, because it was an old show that had already been dubbed. And so he sat me down with my script next to his script, and we compared, and he, right about, I actually had an optional script that I was allowed to do if I wanted to, and I did both. And it took me a long time. I probably spent 60 hours on these two scripts, which, for comparison, nowadays scriptwriters are expected to take 1 week to do 2 scripts. But he pointed out, the third line I'd written. It was some dude's you're not allowed to kill me, you're a police officer, there are rules. And then Sabat's character is thing is, I break that rule a lot. And then he was like, this is where I decided to hire you. And I was like, why did I do a whole extra script then? I didn't say that out loud. I said that in my heart. That's how that went. And then I got put onto Fairy Tale. Tyler Walker directed and was the lead writer for Fairy Tale at the time. And he taught me a lot. And he ended up liking my scripts enough that he was like, hey, you've been voice acting a long time and you're doing good scripts, you've got good knowledge of the text, do you want to direct? And he was actually the third person who'd asked me if I wanted to direct. The first person, I think, was Colleen. And when she said it, I was like, yeah, I'd love to, but I don't know if I'm, that. Yeah, if you want me to, sure, I guess I could try. And she didn't mention it again. And I forget, it might have been Caitlin's last, who asked me the next time, and I did something similar. And then when Tyler Walker asked, I said, yes, I'm your man, I'm ready. And what do you know, he brought me in to do it. So yeah, when people ask you if you want to do a thing and you want to do it, maybe don't undersell yourself at that moment. Just say that. Good question. Yes?
Are you an anime fan, and do you watch your own animes that you voice acted in?
Yeah. I don't watch everything that I've done. I have to sort of like what I see of it as I'm recording it. If the show is not just prominent, but if the show feels like it's going to be difficult, then I'll watch it in advance, subtitled, so that I can get a vibe for the character. And I'll read the manga, read ahead. I do everything I can. With characters like Senku especially, because he's
have to do that research.
Yeah, he's such a genius, and so the only advantage I have over him is time. I can prepare. And I do watch anime for fun. Anime that I've watched for fun recently, I'm rewatching Mob Psycho 100 in preparation for the 3rd season. I think that show is amazing. I cannot get over it. It's just, yeah, it's a tearjerker, and it's got so much soul, and it's a comedy. I really like crying at comedy anime. I don't know why. No, I do. It's because that's what gets me to commit to a character. Whenever a show's purpose is to make me sad, I like dissociate. I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna. This person's life is tragic. They're a sinking ship. I'm gonna avoid them. It's so awful of me to say. It is what I do when I'm watching TV. Whereas with comedy, you can really rope me in because there's so many highs to draw from that I feel like I have a good relationship with this person and I want them to succeed because they make me laugh. Yeah. Anime is good at that. It's good at combining those things. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for how to get into voice acting?
Yeah. So you live in the right state. That's good. Dallas is where Crunchyroll is. My suggestion, there was, when it was Funimation, there was an email address that was voice.acting@funimation.com. It might be that it's voice.acting@crunchyroll.com now, or it might be that emailing Funimation would still work. The point is, what you want to find is Audition Crunchyroll. Audition Funimation is the thing you want to Google. Don't look up become voice actor. Look up audition, because that's what actors would look up, right? And then you find the email to send an email to, and you say, hey, I'd love to audition for y'all. Do that today, and then spend the next 2 years while you're waiting for them to actually get to you on the list. Spend the next 2 years training. Best way to train, in my opinion, is community theater. Why, you ask? Would community theater be the way to train? Well, Clouded Cream Cookie is a very prominent character in Cookie Run Kingdom. He is a driving force in the last couple arcs that have been in that story. I have spent a total of 8 hours playing him. 8 hours doing that work. People will spend probably, what feels like 100 hours with the character, but it took me 16 hours. I mean, not 16, it took me 8 hours to do everything he's done. Maybe more like 7. I once did a play called The Pillow Man, where I was the main character of that, and I easily spent 400 hours acting as that character. So just in terms of raw experience, because I'm rehearsing, I'm memorizing lines, I'm saying my lines as I'm driving to places, you live the character whenever it's theater, because you have to memorize it, and you have to do the blocking, and you have to, and you discuss the text and what have you. In terms of becoming an actor, theater just allows you to throw so much more time at it than anything else will. And community theater is quite accessible. They do open auditions a lot. It's not usually paid, but if your goal is to learn acting, that's the way. So that's the 2 things I would suggest. Outside of that, depending on how old you are, how old are you?
23.
23? Have you gone to school? Have you thought about going to school?
I've done a little bit.
I'd suggest going back and being an acting major, theater major, because that's the way that you get an agent. That's the easiest way to get an agent. And getting an agent is the easiest way to get onto Funimation's Crunchyroll's audition list. Yeah. Short of that, you can also go the slightly more haggard route, and you can buy some mattress foam and soundproof your closet, get yourself a USB mic and an iPad and some weird software, and then start doing auditions on stuff you find on Twitter until you've stuffed a resume, and then you submit that resume and a 1-minute reel of all the work that you've gotten. This will all be super low paid work, right? But it's experience. And every audition is experience. And if you can fill a resume with indie projects you've worked on, I think that's another good chance that you have at getting an agent. Yeah. Best of luck. I think that's all I got.
What was one of your favorite characters from either video game or anime that you voice acted?
My favorite character from video games or anime that I've voice acted? I already mentioned Senku, but it is Senku. He and I have a very similar sense of humor. I very much aspire to be someone like him. Like not in terms of like I'm never gonna be that brilliant, but I do like how driven he is, and think that I could stand to be more like that. I like how he is self-motivated and he inspires other people to work towards goals. And he has a lot of fun doing it. Sometimes he literally will derive joy from the suffering that other people go through, not because he's sadistic, but because he knows that it's like pain now for reward later, and he knows that that's the case for them, that they're becoming closer to the person they want to be, and that right now it sucks, huh? Yeah, I enjoy that dynamic. Yes.
You started your career fairly young at your age, and you worked with some big names kind of right out of the gate, with like Nick Mignon and Chris Savage. And did they instill in you any kind of knowledge to help kind of guide your path in the industry? Did you like invest in the stocks when Funimation was early on?
No, the big names that taught me early would be Mike McFarland and Colleen Carroll. They're the two directors of Full Metal Alchemist. Justin Cook as well. It's directors that you spend time with, though. You don't meet the other voice actors until you find yourself at a convention with them. Yeah.
So the nature of the work makes sense.
Right. So, I learned a lot from Colleen and Mike. Pretty much anything good in my performance in Full Metal Alchemist is owed directly to them. Like, I was just like a puppet for them to work with. A very unruly, distractible puppet. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yes.
While you were going to school and also voice acting, did you ever have any friends that watched the shows that you were in?
Yeah, every now and then. The way it would go, I didn't like bring it up. My parents were like, "Don't do that. Don't be the dude who brags about that." And so instead, I would it was just like a little bit of a ticking time bomb with each new friend I made. Until they found out, and then they would act really weird for a day, and then the next day it's normal. Some friends, and this is something I dislike. It was a little bit of a canary in the coal mine for the friendship. Are you now going to try to leverage me to get cool points for yourself? Because some friends would be like, hey, do you watch Full Metal Alchemist? We make a new friend, and they're like, do you watch Full Metal Alchemist? He plays Alphonse. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Yeah. Aside from that, I had a fairly normal upbringing. It was a little weird in terms of going to conventions. I was not a very. I had good friends by the time I was like a junior, senior in high school. But freshman, sophomore year, there were days where I struggled to find someone to sit with at lunch. And so there was a little bit of. I'm going to call it thermal weathering. That's what they call it, where it gets super cold and then super hot, and it causes rocks to break. So the super cold would be me going to sit on the bleachers with my headphones in so that it doesn't look like I'm lonely. I like being alone. I'm fine. And then that weekend, I go to a convention, and this was when Full Metal Alchemist was huge and new. And so I'd go to a convention and there'd be hundreds of people in a panel like this, partially because I was, who I was next to and not who I was. But nonetheless, everything I said they think was so funny. And then I'd go back to school and I'd make the same sort of joke, and it wasn't as funny. Because it wasn't the voice of Alphonse making the joke, it was just Aaron making the joke, So that was weird on my psyche. Aside from that, I had a fairly normal upbringing. Yeah.
Can you still do Alphonse's voice?
Nah.
Can you try?
No. Next question. So, you know, I was 11 when I was cast as Al. I'm 29. But also, I'm not Alphonse in Brotherhood. I do a cameo in Brotherhood where I'm the voice of young Hohenheim in the episode with the dwarf in the flask. So I like play my father because that's how much my voice had dropped. So it's Maxie Whitehead doing an impression of 11-year-old me that you'll hear in Brotherhood. And her impression of 11-year-old Aaron is much better than 17-year-old Aaron's impression of 11-year-old Aaron. Yeah, and so if I couldn't do the voice at 17, I'm not even going to try right now. Anybody else? No? Uh-huh.
You like as a voice actor, and people come up with you up to quotes or taglines from your characters,
All the time.
and me, I oftentimes quote movies or shows or anything. Does that ever happen with your characters who are like, oh, I love this line of my character, or have you done it so many times, just for kids recording it, that you're like, I never want to say that line again with them?
I enjoy, with each new character, I enjoy the search for what this character's line will be. What's the common quote? With Al, it's always going to be, can we keep him? Can we keep if there's two cats? And if there's no cats, it's brother, exclamation point. With Tamaki, it's I want to go home. Or it's Aaron Dismuke. I sign and then I write in parentheses, wants to go home. With Sinku, it's I ask what their name is. What's your name?
Rosalind.
Rosalind. I say, get excited, Rosalind. And if they're a super big Sinku fan, I say, get 10 billion% excited, Rosalind. Yeah.
Do you ever just like when you're talking to your friends and you're like, get excited? Oh wait, no.
I do that, yes. Except for the part where you realize you got self-aware and then cut yourself off. I don't cut myself off. I just do it and then I say it. Luckily, my friends don't watch my work really, and so they don't know. They don't know what I've done. Only I know. It's an odorless fart. Why? Yeah.
Have you ever made the Senku Cola?
No. No. The only technology that I think I might try to do from Dr. Stone is the only tech that I think I'll try to do from Dr. Stone is I want to make a siphon someday. I've got some there's some family land that my father owns 1/55 of between all these different cousins. And we're all allowed to go onto the land. It's like, I forget, I think it's like 20 acres. It's a fair parcel of land. And it's got a bunch of little bodies of water on it. And I've wondered if I couldn't make a super lake by doing siphons. I really want to play God there. I want to, every time I've been lucky enough to get to go to Australia, and I'm going to New Zealand soon. And every time I go to another continent, I see some animal and I desperately want to bring it back and start a colony in Texas. And I know that that's illegal and wrong. That's how you create invasive species. But wouldn't it be badass to have some kangaroos out here? They thrive. It's really similar. They eat, don't they eat grass? They eat grass. Yeah. And they like it hot. They like it dry. Texas. Let's do it.
It's illegal though.
All right, let's vote. Who thinks I should smuggle some marsupials back from Australia? Who thinks I shouldn't smuggle marsupials back?
Dang.
Some of y'all are just abstaining from the vote, and this is why. Never mind. I'm not gonna get political. Well, I mean, kidnapping marsupials has it, though. I saw that. Yes. He has a kangaroo.
Yes, one thing.
We're gonna need at least 10. I see. So I really just need to rob some Americans. I don't have to try to get this across international lines. I just need to rob a couple American pet owners. And then play some romantic music. And keep my walls high. All the no trespassing signs until there's too many kangaroos for them to stop me. Yes? Say that one more time.
You can go the Rio route and then have like the two pet owners come bring their kangaroos. You wouldn't have to rob them.
How do I invite them? What do I do? Do I make promises?
I just gave you that.
Hello, person in Tennessee. Please join me at my quote-unquote ranch in East Texas for biscuits and coffee.
And bring your kangaroo.
Bring your kangaroo. My handwriting gets like really red rummy around there. Excuse me, I'm holding court at my ranch in East Texas. Bring your kangaroos, wink. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. I suppose I could bribe them to visit. How do I get them to leave without their kangaroos?
If they leave you the one kangaroo, you promise them 2 baby kangaroos in a future date.
There we go.
Plus, then they can, if they have 2 kangaroos that are breedable, then they can keep spreading your dreams.
And you know, they say that inbreeding prevents a population from being viable.
Yeah. You get a big enough population, doesn't matter.
Exactly. It just means that there's a good chance that a lot of your population will suffer. But there's, you know, if you have enough, if you roll the dice enough times, you're gonna get 6s. Somebody's gonna quote me on that. So the thing about incest is that if you roll the dice enough times, you get 6s. What am I doing? I'm so sorry. Does anybody, y'all play Pokemon? Anybody do Pokemon breeding in Pokemon? Can we talk about how, like, a whale lord can breed with a Vulpix? With a skitty? That's even worse.
It's a whole meme.
Oh my god. So you do that, and Game Freak is like, sorry, say it again?
You would go Waylord to Skitty to Magikarp if you want your Gyarados to get balanced.
So not only can it be done, you might want it, you might need it to be done.
Gyarados can't fly for some reason. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I've been planning to write a letter to Game Freak for some time now, where I say, you know, put a whale lord with a skitty at the daycare, and y'all are like, love finds a way. And yet, there is a 0% chance of my charm ability working if the Pokemon are of the same genders. 0%? Come on. And like, they're like, it's like interspecies. But it has to be heterosexual. It's like you can't even tell what gender a Gyarados is. If you think one Gyarados is hot, you think they're all hot. That's all I'm saying, okay?
I mean, the people
You can quote me on that too. Alright, and that's all our time. Thank you so much.
I don't know what happened.
They stopped asking questions. So I'm gonna go to my table now, and I will be signing stuff until the dealer's room closes. Thank you so much.